I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. So here we are today. We have two special guests. It's a first for Wild Soul Medicine Radio that we have two guests in one episode. And I couldn't be more proud and excited and inexplicably nervous and really just filled with energy. I could feel so much Kundalini energy and just every bit of my being is tingling with aliveness right now. And that is because the guests that we have today are my brand new, freshly arrived medicine drum. Her name is Nuru, which means filled with light. And we'll talk more about the magic of how that name occurred and really all of the magic and mystery around the birthing of a medicine drum and this particular medicine drum. And I've been deeply in this process for the last about 6 months and probably more so for the last 4 years. I've really been searching for a drum for a while and didn't realize that you could actually make one. I didn't even know that was a thing. And when I found that out, it started to make a lot of sense why nothing had resonated literally before that. I would try them out and I would think, oh, it's not quite the right sound. Oh, it's not the right, size or the right type or the right this or that. And then I had the opportunity to, I actually just peripherally saw a post from my second guest. Her name is Andrea Lougheed. And I saw this beautiful medicine drum in the post and I felt the vibration of this woman and I said, oh, her. And I didn't actually even know what she did, but I just wanted to connect with her. And when I found out that she is a midwife of so many things, including drums, and she is filled with drum medicine, we connected and we've been in this process together for the last 6 months. And so just this past week, we initiated Nuru actually just after the radio show last week. And so I've had a week of being able to hear her and play her and get to know her. And I couldn't wait to share her with you. And because really this process is so much more than creating a drum, and that's what we're going to play with today. And that's why I wanted Andrea here, because it's been such a shamanic, alchemistic experience of, I've had very little conscious attention on doing it. And literally I feel like she has birthed me, like she has created me. And so I wanted Andrea here because, she's had this experience numerous times with her students and with her own birthing of drums for herself. And she's just such a beautiful teacher and wise woman in my life. And I knew that she would hold us well through this conversation as we kind of retrace our steps. And, it's interesting that I was speaking this morning about, I was talking to Lance and Viv about, okay, so I know that this is Nuru show, and what's my point? Is this a little like listening to somebody's vacation story, or, do you care about my drum? And I couldn't quite make the connection. And then, of course, what I got is this show is just like her creation, which is it's all about the mystery and the story and the weaving of the energetics behind and beneath the curtain. And so I trust that whatever unfolds here today, that it will be medicine for your soul and for your journey and your path, and that whatever you need to hear is exactly the transmission that will come forward for you in your own becoming. And so as we prepare to drop in here, I also just want to mention that right after the show today, we are hopping into class 2 of Soulful Money Medicine. And that's our 6-week course where we're actually using money as a portal to help you free your soul so that you can liberate your exchange with life. And the information is just pouring through me in that class, and it's taking, even a new direction than what I think it's going to, as always, right? And so we're just in. Every class is recorded, so if you missed the first one, no worries. In fact, having this library of recordings, I recommend that you do them over and over and over, so you can really drop in anytime. But there is some extra juju and alchemy to being there in the live version, because I'm only going to be offering it live this first time. So if you want to join us, you can go to soulfulmoneymedicine.com and claim your spot, and we will get you everything you need to catch up, and you can join us on this really beautiful journey that we're on over there. So with that, let's be here. Let's be here with Nuru and Andrea. And I want to say just a little more about Andrea. I always just like to introduce people via essence, because, there's so much, right? There's so much we can say about what a person does and is. But what I have so appreciated about Andrea is that she is so unassuming. She just shows up and is. And, when I initially met with her, I thought she was going to help me make a medicine drum. And then I think maybe our second session, she was sharing some wisdom, and I had this awareness of like, oh my gosh, she's mentoring me right now, right? Like I thought I was just hiring her to do a drum, and she somehow got under my cracks, and now she's sharing this wisdom, but in the most perfect way that my warrior system could allow it, right? There was no threatening. There was no authority to it. There was no, wait, I'm going to teach you something. It was just, she was just sharing, and it was very profound. And that continues to be my journey with her, that she is a very wise old soul who knows her way around so many worlds, and really just shows up with this gentle presence that's so easy to be with. And I have enjoyed her immensely, and she and I will definitely be walking closely together going forward. And outside of all of that, she is a visionary medicine woman in her own right. She's a seer, a tracker, a midwife of embodied joy. She's a former dancer, and she's an active drummer and leader and wisdom keeper, And so with all of that, I really just with an open heart and a deep bow introduce you to my sister, my friend, my mentor, my guide, Andrea. Hello, darling.
Hello.
Here we are.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel teary having you here.
Oh, thank you. I feel very touched.
Yeah. Yeah, touched is a good word on so many levels. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
feel right now the depth of Pachamama. I feel are under your feet and my feet and all those that are circling around with us. And that's really the pulse in the center of the earth that holds us all, and that's part of your relationship with Nuru, to connect to that pulse. So I'm just feeling Pachamama rising up and holding all of us, a great circle of sisters, and the deep joy and the tenderness and the power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is like, it feels like a similar emotion to when I had my children, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, I did not expect it to be emotional, but it always is. You know, she always catches me by surprise. And it's just, I think there's so much magnificence, you know, that my system isn't quite used to being with all of that. And it's just really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Perhaps I, on behalf of your tribe, can honor you've been in this gestation and growing space in the womb, and then the labor place. And, you know, just like when we birth our children, we look to the children, wow, there you are, but also the children birth us, you know, into our next cycle. And this drum is birthing you into a next medicine cycle. So maybe we can all gather around and hold space for you. And it's true for all of us as we birth big medicines and enter new cycles. Let the tribe and myself and Nuru hold space for you as you step into this new place.
That feels beautiful. I would receive that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just present to the grace of having held space for me. It's really...
Yeah, we must all take a turn in the center of the circle. You're a brave and fearless medicine leader. And we're happy to have you stand in the center of the circle and with Nuru in your hand, and for all of us just to see and acknowledge you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Nuru is gorgeous. She is so beautiful. She's right here with me, and she's such a space holder. We've really all noticed how much space she commands for herself, and she's really teaching me in that way. You know, she's very good at it. I'm learning. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So here we are, and I barely know where to start, but I'd love to, you know, just drop in and feel into the beauty of this journey. You know, there have been so many synchronicities and miracles and, you know, clearings and openings and awarenesses, and really everything that you all have heard me talk about on this show for the last 6 months has been in some way connected to this journey with her, you know, and it was funny because so many times they would happen, and then I mean, I'm always, you know, evolving and growing, so like I know that stuff's going to happen, and then I would get on a call with Andrea, and she would say, so what medicine, you know, what drum medicine is there? And I would say, oh, I don't know. And then I would start to tell her what had been happening, and it was all drum medicine. Like it was all connected. And it has just been this beautiful way that usually I'm so much tracking what's happening and what it's created by and to and from and connected and all of that. And in this process, I really continually found myself delighted and surprised by the connections of all of it. And Andrea, you've birthed so many drums for others and for yourself. Is that your experience with this process always, or different?
I hope deeply that it is always the experience to some degree, and that's where I speak about the difference between a medicine drum or a spirit drum, rather than a drum, because we are calling in a spirit. We are birthing a spirit to enter and manifest into this drum. And so it is readying us. We are walking towards it, waits for us. Basically, we say, yes, I'm willing and I'm ready. And then it stands sort of ready, fully formed as essence. And we must walk towards it and then, simply be the assistant with hands in the creating of the matter of the vessel for it to come in. But yes, I hope to some degree everyone has this experience, and the depth of it is really about our willingness, to be fully in and fully untamed and really in relationship. It's really opening to a relationship.
Mm. Yes. That really explains so much, and I feel like it's a lot of what I've been talking about lately and what's happening in the money medicine class. And, it's like there are these motions we can go through. So there are lots of people who have drums and, accoutrements of various kinds in our conscious communities. And then there are always the deeper, more conscious ways we can do anything. And I think that's one of the beautiful things I have loved in our work together is how you really pay attention to the energetic of every piece. I know that's a big piece of your work, making the ordinary extraordinary. And I'd love to hear you talk more about that. How did you come to that? What does it mean to you? How do you hold that, or why is it important?
It's the all, it's the everything. It's the dimension of yummy life. It's the seeing a tree as a tree and then labeling a tree and then, but then it's going up and feeling yourself enter the auric field of the tree, and then it's opening yourself to the consciousness of the tree and then entering into the relationship. It's, now every walk in any park or city street or in the forest is a completely different experience. And this is what I call the medicine sphere. It opens in all directions, and any cell that has life in it contains consciousness and the potential for deep relationship and an exchange of medicine and wisdom and love. And it's really about us becoming available to it and opening to it in any and every moment. And for me, it's what I call if I get flat, if, some people tell me, well, the earth is flat and things aren't alive and blah, 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 like my heart just breaks and I'm a shell and I don't want to live here anymore. But the minute I say, no, there's another reality, and I open it up and I, join with creation that's all alive, then life in all its ordinariness is absolutely beautiful and deep and rich and huge. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And some great teachings for me as we were creating Nuru was, just like, there are pieces, right? So each of the pieces of the drum, so there's this whole process of connecting with the hide, and then, the rim of the drum comes already made, and it's, but it's from a tree. And so there's this process of activating the rim by sitting next to a tree while, connecting with the energy that rim was a tree. And, and then what is it now? And just becoming like so choiceful and so intentional about, well, now it's a portal, and how does it open and how does it close and how does it hold space? And, and again, as someone who's tuned into so many levels of things, this really was great South medicine for me, of being here in this 3D reality, that it looks like it's a certain thing. It looks like it's not that much to me, right? That would be my perspective in the past. And yet when you tune in, there are worlds within worlds within worlds. And I feel like, Andrea, you hold such magical space for that it really allowed all of that to insert itself in so many like really concrete ways throughout this process that were really beautiful. And I'm sure we'll talk more about some of those specifics as we recount our journey. But I just really do appreciate that about you, because it's not people talk about that. In fact, in my very first company, in my book, I wrote a chapter called "Ordinary is Extraordinary," believe it or not. And it was like it was like a mind thing, like, oh, you should be grateful for this thing that's in front of you because that's a good thing to do, but not actually having the experience of it outside of the mind. And it feels like such a full circle moment to be really coming back to it in this really like depth-filled portal way. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
So let's, there's so many things that we could say. I'm deciding if we should just kind of recount the journey from the beginning to now, or if we should kind of share some of our favorite moments. I feel like favorite moments might be more fun than sequential, but I'm open if you have any thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, I know your tribe would love to hear the story. So yeah, favorite moments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to go first, or you want me to?
You go first.
Okay. All right. I'll go first. So, okay. So I'll kind of go sequentially, but, maybe not exactly. So one of my, early experiences was as the hide comes. So Andrea had said to me, that part of the experience of the hide, that part of that initiation is death, death medicine. And, you may connect with the death of the animal herself, or, death as a whole. And so, as that process was occurring, because we're very choiceful about what type of hide we use, and are we ready for the hide? And, we really waited for it to call us in. And, so we just took as long as we took. We didn't have a timeline on how long any of this would take. And right about the time that we decided on the hide, was when I had my kidney stone experience and what felt like an ego death. So it was literally like my own death, and it's kind of like every experience of this creation has been like that. Like it was never the small end of the spectrum. It was always, kind of the biggest manifestation of what that could be. And so that was, so potent and huge. And then when the hide actually arrived, I had an experience with my daughter who, she and I were both vegetarians for 4 years. And so she was really raised in that experience. And then we both stopped being a vegetarian a couple years ago, but she's still pretty iffy on the whole eating animals and animals dying situation. And mine has shifted now that I can feel the energetic connection and this intentionality around it and so forth. And so when the hide arrived, there's a whole process of allowing the hide and the rim and the pieces of the mallet to all, get together. And so I had them out, getting in that experience. And, and the hide smells like a hide. It's from an animal. And so my daughter, who's, super tuned in, came in and said, she looked at it she touched it, and then she said, "Ew, is this a dead animal?" And I said, "It is, honey. It's a deer hide." And she immediately was repulsed by it and was, "I don't want any part of it. I can't believe you would kill an animal to have a drum." And I spoke with Andrea about that, and and we both shared this beautiful experience of, Andrea has a daughter who's transitioning into a new stage of life, and my daughter was just in the process of finishing the last week of school at the school she's been in for 6 years, and so she was experiencing some death medicine in her life, and really just to tune in to this very sacred medicine of these cycles of creation and life and death and, the generations of all of it. And, those moments were, for me, who has always struggled to feel supported or connected within my lineage and, sort of in general, like all of those pieces felt so important to me. Like we were tending the tribe and also really finding a rhythm within this cycle of birth and death and birth and death.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that journey, that the birth and death is one of the hardest for us as humans, right? And even conceptually, we may study it, we may understand it, but to actually embrace it full on energetically, to like dive in to all these little deaths in life, it's not easy. It takes that courageous, audacious, untamed energy. And that is one of the great medicines of the drum, because they can always live in death and birth as both always, it beyond the and, into this drum medicine. And that is the piece of anything, that we want to birth or vision. We want a new medicine, whether it's improving our money circulation or calling in a crystal or anything. There is a part of us that has to finish, complete, and die to something before, so that we can be ready to birth it. And we like to skip that part or make it shallow or just skip the stone on the surface and say done,
Mm-hmm.
And the death midwife and the birth midwife are the same midwife.
Mm-hmm. Kali Ma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to honor you. I mean, if we're talking favorites, the transition you took as a soul into the blank page after the physicality of the kidney stones was essence to essence, very deeply moving and touching for me.
Mm.
You just took this amazing step, and some of us as souls don't take that big a step in a lifetime. And I just want to honor you really deeply for that place that you've been through in this process.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm just now seeing in this moment, as we were reflecting on that, I was, so closely held through that process by, women who were in the ceremony with me, and then, Viv and women and my husband who were close to me after. And I'm just in this moment seeing the energetic space that you were holding of the larger container that allowed all of that to be possible. And again, in this very unassuming way that really just has my warrior knot. You're so skilled at that. Like almost no one can hold me or do any kind of an intention in my direction that I don't see it happening and be like, wait, what is that? What are we preparing for? And then it would have me in some defense, but I can just see the unassuming beauty of the huge container that you hold that allowed that transition to be possible. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And in some ways, energetically, I was holding space for Nuru, and Nuru was holding space for you.
I love that. Yes, she was. She's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. She is definitely an old wise one. I think that's another one of my favorite surprises from this experience is I didn't realize that my drum would be a living being. You know, I didn't realize that there would actually be an entity that has her own identity and her own preferences and her own ways of being. And she continues to delight me with that and teach me with that. And one of her big lessons for me has been about how she creates space for herself. And, you know, and it has looked like, you know, so when I ordered the hide and the rim, and they said, you know, it would be here in 10 days or something because it was coming from all the way across the country. And Andrea and I were trying to, you know, coordinate our schedules for her arrival and this and that. And she surprisingly showed up in 2 days instead of 10. She just made her way here on a day when I had plenty of time and space for her. And then on the day of her, and then many times between where she would just do that. And then on the day of her activation, events conspired so that there were many contractors here in my home, and the kids were home from, you know, on summer vacation, and Lance, who's normally always here, was, you know, in a meeting all day. And I was feeling a little consternation at the fact that, you know, I really wanted privacy to be able to play her for the first time and enjoy her. And she conjured a freak thunderstorm and everybody had to leave, and the kids were inexplicably quiet the entire day. And I literally was not interrupted the entire afternoon. And it was the most peaceful, gentle thing ever. And then this morning, right? So Viv hasn't even heard her until this morning and hasn't really even seen a picture of her, I don't think, until this morning. And so I sent Viv the picture to add in the email. And so Viv was kind of rushed, right? So she's like running through some motions and not having a lot of space this morning. And she was having some consternation around the fact that she couldn't find the picture and she couldn't get it where she needed to go. And then she called me back a little bit later and was cracking up laughing. And she said, I have two folders where I keep WSMR pictures. One of them is for the general pictures, and then one is for pictures of guests. And somehow Nuru saved the picture of herself in the guest folder. And so I couldn't find it. So she forced Viv to create some space and slow down, and she created some space for her in the place where she belongs. And it's just like, really amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else? Do you want to share any other ones? I have some others too, but if there's any more you want to share. And I'm open, by the way, so none of them have to be secret. I'm open if there are anything that you want to talk about.
I'm feeling your share and I'll respond. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Okay. So let's talk about her name, because that continues to be one of my favorites. So we never, again, with all of this, like it was never specifically like, now we need to do this part. And so let's go try this, you know, it was just like, we were just holding a space, and then we would follow the energy, and then, you know, we would feel into it and do some things, and then something would unfold, you know, and it was just so perfect that way. And so how I like to roll. So I don't even remember what part we were on or where we exactly were. But I had a dream one night. I had a dream, and in this dream, I was visited by a shaman. And in this dream, I don't know if I shared this on the radio show. I think I shared it with one of my with my magic school group. And so in this dream, my friend Heather was there, and she's really like, she's sort of up for anything energetically. So she was totally getting healed by the shaman, and then she was having these amazing breakthroughs. And I was like, well, I want that. I want to have that breakthrough. And then the shaman would come to me, and I would get like, my warrior would come up, and I'd be like, well, wait, like, well, what are you going to do? And then he would go away. And then I would say, no, but I want it. I just, you know, so it was this dance all night of, Heather modeling for me openness and saying yes, and me being like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then finally he came to me, and I mean, this drill was as real as anything I've experienced in my living life. Like I remember what he looked like. I remember his voice, everything. And I was laying down and he came to me and he said, I have a name for you. And the name is Nuru Jembe. And it means two things. It means full of joy and something good is about to happen. And I woke up in the morning from the dream and I immediately wrote that down, and I wrote down, I thought it was spelled Nulu, and then Djembe I had some crazy spelling of. And so I did try to Google it and see, do those words mean anything? And I wasn't really finding anything the way I had them spelled. And so I ended up talking to my friend Heather, who was in the dream. And I said, I'm just making that connection now too. So she was in the dream. So I knew the person to go to tell the dream who connected me. Right. So I said it to her and she was super excited about it, even more than I was. And so she, on her own, texted a friend who is connected to an African guy, an African chief who is a drummer. And they had this whole exchange of text, and they were, she was asking him, and then he came back and said, oh, djembe is an African drum. I happen to have a past life as an African drummer woman. And so he said, that's what that is. And then he said, at the time we were all spelling it Nulu, Nuru, because that's what it sounded like in the dream. And he said, it's actually Nuru, Nuru, which means light. And I mean, everybody was just filled with chills. And, and so my friend Heather, who she and I share some, beautiful connections in many realms. And she said, you are the drummer of light. And it just felt like it felt so true and so miraculous and special. And what I was, so I was thinking, it was my name, right? Because everybody in this consciousness walk is always like, oh, my new name is whatever. And when I said it to Andrea, when I told her about the dream and I said it to her, she said, that's your drum's name. And I was like, oh my gosh, because he didn't say it was my name. He said, I have a name for you, right? I mean, really? You cannot make this stuff up, right? Yeah. I don't even know if we can put that in the ordinary as extraordinary. That's just plain old extraordinary.
Yeah. That's the extraordinary coming into the ordinary.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yes. Nuru. And I love it on so many levels, that it's African and there's a connection to that lineage. It also feels a little alien, and that lineage is beautiful. And I actually just I was Googling something yesterday and I saw that Nuru is also an Egyptian word. And I have a past life as, of several in Egypt as well. So like, whoa, really cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about the name, Andrea? Or the naming process?
I guess just what I'd speak to, for everybody tuning in is that not all drums have a name or bring forth a name. And also we're tempted to force a name and to name a drum. So, my drum doesn't have a name. And it's quite fine. My drum's 14 years old, and yeah, it has absolutely a presence and an essence. But so in the perspective there, I just want to share, not all drums have a name. And I deeply feel as I'm saying that, the presence of the spirit in this drum really wanted a name to be addressed to, so that we could address it properly, so to address her properly. So I just want to honor Nuru for choosing her name and bringing it forth to you and blessing us with a way to acknowledge her.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's beautiful. Yes. And then that brings me to, I think maybe my last favorite piece, which is, so the day of the making of the drum is a whole ceremony in and of itself. It's actually 2 days. So there's a water ceremony before, and we put the hide in because it has to soak in water, and we open the portal in the space, and then there's a whole day of actually pulling the drum. So there's this beautiful hide that has to be stretched over this frame, and so you pull and you wait, and you pull and you wait, and you massage, and we sing and rattle, and it's it really is such a spiritual experience. And the morning of that experience, so I did that down in my studio, which is a really sacred space here in my home on my property. And the day of that ceremony, my property just came alive with, there's always nature here, right? But there's a way that I can note it on my way to make some soup or on my way to run the kids somewhere, and like, oh, there's the deer out there again or whatever. And this day, every single piece of it felt like nature and my property and Pachamama showing up as a partner in this process. And, beginning with the beginning where we connected with the hide and and so it's deer medicine, and literally this one lone doe came forward on my property. And right when we were talking about it, and Andrea said, I think maybe you should go out with the hide on the land because it's about connecting with the herd and the individual deer. And so I did. And when I went out to see her, I couldn't find her. And I was like, I know she's here because she was just here. And then I look, and she's actually in a tree right beside me. And she just stood there. I mean, she was probably 10 feet away from me, and she stood there looking at me, and I stood there looking at her, and we just had this beautiful communion. And then later, so that was the first day of the water ceremony, before the water ceremony. And then the next morning when I came to actually pull the drum, I looked outside the window, and there's this small flower bed. It's a little bit like an altar. So there's a Buddha there, and some totems that mean something to me. And just outside the window, literally right up against the window where I was sitting, was a robin who had really sacrificed herself on this altar, and she was breast up. And so I was just, again, sharing that with Andrea, who's expert at Ordinary is Extraordinary. And so we immediately looked up, well, I looked up Robin medicine. Andrea already knew and had a beautiful connection to it. And Andrea, I wonder if you want to share some about that medicine, because you do it so beautifully.
Robin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love Robin medicine. So, Robin medicine brings us to the East. We were doing this dance of, the West, the North. The name came through in the North, and then we were moving into the East, the place of the bringing in the vision as we birthed her in the South into form. And of course, we all know that Robin sings in the spring. But I have just learned so much from Robin, and one of the reasons is where I live, the robins don't leave for the winter. So we have this experience of robins all year. And I've been just really listening to them, especially I think the last 5 years. So with the robins here, if I start tuning in February, March, they start with just a couple notes. Doot, beep, beep, beep. And the rest of the birds are quiet and cock their heads. And if I start tracking them and getting up early and listening to the robin, they add a few notes as the day length starts to grow. And then they add a few notes as the day length starts to grow. And the rest of the birds all, kind of pause and listen. So there's this leadership in the winged one, greater clan. And I was sharing with Jody that I had this profound experience this year because I was in my kitchen and I heard the robin song go a bit longer, and I felt called. I kind of ran right out to my yard, and this energy was just pulsing up from Pachamama, and I can often hear Pachamama's song, and it just bubbled up like right up to my knees. And I was just like, oh my God, Pachamama has a new song this year. And, you know, we're all on this human consciousness, like we're growing and evolving and it's new time. But to have this wave come up from Pachamama and hear a new song rising and feeling it in my body, I was just like, I was just erupting in evolutionary, orgasmic kundalini, I don't know, yumminess. And then it was the next morning, the robin sang her full song. And when robin sings her full song, all the birds just hold space. It's like, oh, it's just this present, it's this ceremony. It is an absolute ceremony of spring. And for about a week or 10 days, there's this magic. And then that signals spring. Like that's really the first day of spring. And then the birds start building their nest and everyone gets busy. And then if you keep tracking robin, she slowly backs off the full song. And towards now in the summer, that, you know, there's the tweeping, there's little bits of the melody, little phrases. And then in the winter, she's quiet. And the beautiful teaching for me is that as human beings, we're like, you know, we're fascinated with being heard, or no one hears me or recognizes my medicine. And we get entangled with our medicine and our voice in with ego, right? And with Robin just knows when it's her turn, steps forward fully in that big red breast and sings the song that is her place of leadership in the greater cycle of life. And, you know, it's not beating herself up all winter that no one's listening to her or she's not doing her medicine or da-da-da-da. It's just beautiful. And the other piece with drum medicine is, of course, that robins, you know, if they're prey, they get their digestion through vibration. They cock their head and they hear the womb. You know, they're totally tuned into the level of vibration. And a medicine drum is master of vibration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, all of that. And also for me, it was such a tie-in from, you know, my own medicine, which has been very West, right? Which has been very shadow and dark and, you know, around wounding. And it will still be that. And really there's this bridge happening, right? As my own evolution happens and, you know, as these new portals are open, it's moving toward East medicine, which is more about light. And that's the untaming of my soul path, right? Moving from the fall from grace, the shadow, the not seen and heard, you know, within my work and within my soul into being the light, really being essence. And so, of course, Nuru arrives to teach me about light and about singing a new song. And the robin shows up to make sure I'm getting the message. And I mean, yeah, so there I am. You know, I ended up adorning myself in the robin feathers and bringing her into the ceremony. And, you know, I mean, really like medicine woman, you know, for those of you who've been listening, my inner medicine woman who really has been she was separate and now she really is this more integrated piece within me, but she was in all her glory as we're, you know, pulling the hide of this drum with robin feathers in our hair and singing and rattling and chanting and incorporating all of the medicines, you know, just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. 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 Yes, ma'am. So I think that's all of my favorite parts, although I could just, you know, go on and on, but I'd love to hear from you, Andrea. Is there anything else that you want to name or share or any medicine you'd like to bring forward?
I think I just want to honor the size of the sort of the third bubble, the Trinity that can open in any relationship. So as you were talking about, yeah, you've become very masterful in your West work and you're honoring and helping so many people. We all have so much work to do in our shadows and our dead flesh and our numbness and frozen places and archetypes. And as we grow the East, for example, the East and West become partners. and they become a continuous circuit of exchange and energy. And then a third energy opens up, which is east and west. And that is the same with the energy of Jodi and the energy of Nuru. And when Jodi and Nuru come together, there is a third energy and a third medicine that you can create. And this is true for all of us when we open our exchange, and your work with sacred money as a currency of exchange of relationship, which is really what it is, money is meant to open the bubble of that third energy. Between Jodi and I, we made an exchange, or between Jodi and her client, or between myself and the hydro bill even, there's an exchange of energy between humans, and the money is meant to be open and full as the third energy, and we've flattened it and squared it off and pounded it. So I just want to honor in all of these and all of our journeys, and the relationship and the exchange energy, and the bigger we can be available, the bigger that sort of third energy opens and holds space for all of us. And as you were saying about the space holding, it's really that third energy of your becoming and Nuru's becoming, and the potential of your partnership that was the bigger bubble that held the two of your journey into the relationship as you step forward, and will continue to. I mean, as I said, my drum's 14 years old. The relationship continues to grow and change. And so there's that beautiful relational bubble that holds space for us in all our medicine exchanges.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, wise teacher. That's exactly what's so funny. So the Soulful Money Medicine class today, I was thinking like, oh, interesting. We're going to talk about Nuru, and then a whole separate thing where we're going to talk about relationship and meeting the world in essence. And, how money is this interface between where we have a relationship between ourselves and the world. And it's this like third entity. And it's exactly that. And so thank you. Thank you for bringing awareness to that, because I think that's really this magical piece that's so new to me, and also so beautiful, and also hard to wrap my brain around, because I am really used to my own container, right? And then I can see Nuru as her container. And then, this level of relationship, this way of being, with another object or another entity is a whole new scenario for me. And I'm really just getting this third bubble concept and playing. I'm so excited to play with it and see, because it does actually create a whole new way of surrendering, and how you it creates a new way of being your essence, and also interfacing your essence. That's what I'm noticing. Like when I play her, there's this way of kind of when you're learning to dance, and it's like who's leading and who's following. And then there's the dance, right? Like the dance itself sort of determines the steps and the tempo and the energetic. And so, all of these old ideas I have about expressing myself, or playing a drum, or having to know a song, or do something while I'm playing, like all of that is getting initiated, out. And then there's this new opening for like, what would it be like if my instrument played me? And what would it be like if there was a synergy between me and her, Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And what would it be like if we had a synergy like that with our money story, and with our lovers and our partners and our clients and our work and the 3D world? It's really endless how that could happen.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And it, from the human point of view, we actually increase our sovereignty as we increase our availability to the third bubble.
Say more about that. That's intriguing.
Well, I think because if we think of relationship as two, then I need all these kind of gates and doors and window, curtains half pulled as to how much I'm going to be available to another. When there's just two bubbles, and I don't mean just two bubbles, but two bubbles only as the energy of exchange. And when we allow the third bubble to come and hold space for all of us, and allow that third bubble to be held in a sacred way, then I can be more purely who I am in essence, and just free to be who I am and show up and be completely open and available to the moment. And so can the other. And it is the third bubble that holds space for both of us. When there's two only, then we get into this exchange that's kind of bartering and agreements and contracts and, whatever that the ego plane, what I call like flat landing it. But when we bring in the third bubble, we can open up, and that's where we get into that bigger medicine space, that extraordinary exchange that is just happening in the moment in such a free and liberated way, and without agreements and contracts and everything. It's immediately also free and liberated because it's not tracking us into the future or pushing buttons on the past. It just is essence to essence in this space. And to get that through drum medicine it's such a living and tangible place, and yet it's less complicated than learning that first with humans. So once we learn that with drums, then we can begin to bring more mastery of that towards our human dancings. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling all of that. That was such an opening for me. I can feel that from the past life as a drummer. I can feel that as a potentiality for this life as a different kind of a drummer. And it feels like a beautiful cocoon to explore and play in. And you're right. I love some of the things that seem the most simplistic as far as interactions can teach us the most about energetics. Without all the interference of other egos and identities and social norms and all of that. Mm-hmm.
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart. Rhythm to rhythm. Yes. Okay, so I know that everyone is like, can we hear her? And yes, the answer is yes. And so I feel that what we'll do is close out the show with her. And before we do that, I know that so many of you are desiring to walk a path of making a medicine drum or learning more completely from Andrea. And so, Andrea, is there a way that they can connect with you? And if you want to say anything about how they could connect or what they would connect about, I'm sure they would love to hear that.
Yeah, I'm to all kinds of avenues, including medicine drums. You can have a look on my sort of new and beginning East website, which is thegreatmedicine.com. And you could also email me at andrea@thegreatmedicine.com. And I'd be happy to chat with anybody about anything medicine, essence, essential. And I also want to say, before we close out, I just want to really honor both you and Nuru. And I want to honor with that each of us for every yes we make and the steps it takes to walk to the yeses. And then the great adventure of the grace of exploring relationship from a true place of open-hearted essence. So a circular kind of honoring everybody here, as well as really taking a moment to honor you and Nuru.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yes, and a big, deep bow of gratitude for who you are and what you bring and your many, many times around the sun. You know, it's beautiful to walk with another wise one and to be seen and to be held. And so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I will introduce you to Nuru. And my invitation, so we're playing a little with the technology here, and as a medicine drum, she really speaks through vibration, more so than through the ears per se. So I invite you to listen from a place deep within yourself that maybe is through your ears and maybe is some other place. And let me just check with her and see if she wants to say anything else. Yeah, and she says this is a song about arrival. Yeah, okay. And so it is. Until next time, bye for now.